how people in the past used to tolerate the heat without air conditioning or a fan. Before the advent of air conditioning and electric fans, people in the past had to adapt in various ways to survive the intense heat during summer months. They did not have the luxury of modern cooling systems that we rely on today. Instead, they used a combination of practical, natural, and cultural methods to cope with high temperatures, many of which were deeply rooted in their environment and way of life. One of the most significant factors that helped people deal with heat in the past was the architecture of homes and buildings. Traditional houses were designed to keep the inside cool by using materials that could absorb and retain coolness, such as thick stone or mud walls. These materials would absorb heat during the day and slowly release it during the cooler night. The layout of the house was also important. Buildings often featured high ceilings, thick walls, and small windows to reduce the amount of hot air that could enter, while allowing for ventilation. In hot climates, houses were often constructed around courtyards that facilitated airflow, promoting natural cooling by allowing wind to circulate freely. Another method people used to stay cool was by altering their daily routines. For example, many cultures have historically adopted a siesta or midday nap, avoiding the hottest hours of the day when the sun is at its peak. This was especially common in Mediterranean countries and other regions where the sun's intensity was harsh. People would typically work during the cooler hours of the early morning and late afternoon, taking a break in the middle of the day to rest and cool off. The clothing worn by people in hot climates was another important factor in surviving the heat. Loose, lightweight, and breathable fabrics made from natural fibers such as cotton and linen were commonly worn. These materials allowed for better air circulation, which helped to keep the body cool. In many cultures, people would wear light-colored clothing as well, as darker colors tend to absorb heat. Additionally, people would often cover their heads with scarves or hats to protect themselves from the sun, and sometimes even use wet cloths to cool down their bodies. Water also played a crucial role in helping people deal with heat. In many parts of the world, water sources were essential not just for drinking, but for cooling off. People would regularly take cool baths or wash their faces and hands with cold water to help reduce their body temperature. In some places, people would even use natural sources of cooling, such as rivers, lakes, or wells, to stay refreshed during the heat of the day. Diet also had an influence on how people managed the heat. Many cultures in hot climates have traditionally consumed lighter, more hydrating foods like fruits and vegetables, which not only provided hydration but also helped to cool the body. Spicy foods were also often eaten, as they can promote sweating, which in turn helps cool the body through evaporation. In addition to these practical measures, people also relied on their local environment to help them cope with the heat. Trees, shade, and breezes were vital for comfort. People would often rest under large trees or seek shelter in shaded areas to avoid the direct sunlight. In many cases, villages and towns would be designed with shaded streets, where the architecture or vegetation provided relief from the sun. In summary, before the invention of modern cooling technology, people lived with the heat by relying on a combination of architecture, clothing, behavior, and local resources. Though they didn't have the luxury of air conditioning or electric fans, they developed creative, practical, and culturally rich ways to endure the heat and maintain comfort in even the most sweltering conditions.